So, good evening, friends. What a pleasure to be back with my episode number 7 of Sharp Conversation. Uh, most of you whom I'm seeing online are, of course, people who know me, but the ones who may not know me and may watch this session later, for them, I will just introduce myself. My name is Dipali Narula, and I am a life coach with my expertise in self growth and relationships of partners, of couples. And today it gives me great pleasure in being able to, talk about the subject of health and to talk about healthy eating habits and a healthy lifestyle. I have the most leading practicing nutritionist in the country, Miss Ishi Khosla. And, staying with the subject, I'm going to start by saying that to eat is a necessity, but to eat intelligently is an art. Now, the adage is very self-explanatory, isn't it? Um, to eat is absolutely essential, imperative for all of us to live. But to eat with awareness and knowledge is a talent in itself. And friends, um, how many of us really know and ensure that we lead a life with healthful eating habits and lifestyle, which is so essential for our body and for our mind. And also to understand what is the kind of relationship that we must have with food. So, to explain all this and much more, my guest is the person who would be the best person to speak to all of you. I have a lot of questions that have already been sent to me, but you're welcome to put your questions on the chat box. And I hope I'm able to take them up because I'm already inundated with a lot of questions. So, without any further delay, I'm going to now get my very special guest on screen, India's leading practicing nutritionist, Ishi Khosla. Hi, Ishi. A very good evening to you, my dear friend.
Hi, Dipali. First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me on this show, Sharp Conversations. And I was listening to my introduction as a guest, and I would like to modify that as I'm a friend first and a guest after that for you. And also, that I have to just tell you that, this particular interview, I mean, I've done so many for the last 25 years. But I am so looking forward to this chat with you. This is probably the most exciting one for me.
Likewise,
Just because it's you. Just because it's you.
Thank you so much, my dear friend. And before we start on with the questions, I'm going to just quickly take a couple of minutes to introduce you to the people. And while I do that, I'm going to just request you to check your phone because I can see there is a lag in the that is coming through while you are speaking. So, can your phone be put in a way that you go off the Wi-Fi?
You want me to put it on airplane mode?
Yes.
Yeah. It is actually on airplane mode.
Okay, now it's better. Okay, now it's better. Now it's better. Now it's better. Hi, Renu ji. Hi, good to see you. I can see a lot of people joining in. So I'm going to keep calling out to everybody. But in the meantime, I'm going to quickly let people know about Ishi Khosla. So Ishi is, of course, like I've already said, a practicing clinical nutritionist, a pharmacist, an author, a researcher, and an entrepreneur. She's actively involved in clinical practice at the Center for Dietary Counseling in Delhi. She has launched first of its kind health food company called Whole Foods India. She authored several books, which of course she will tell us about, but to name a few, Eating at Work, The Dark Doctor, The Root Killing You, The Cholesterol Tax, and more. She has been nominated as a member of the Program Advisory Committee, Doordarshan Kendra. She is a member of the governing body of Lady Irwin College, Delhi University, and is a consultant to many corporates and multinationals. She is the founder of the Celiac Society of India, which has been instrumental in creating awareness about celiac. She founded the first of its kind unique score-based nutrition app called theweightmonitor.com, and helped thousands of people across the globe to lose weight scientifically. Among her various recognitions, to name a few, the recognitions include Distinguished Alumnus 2011 at Lady Irwin College Women's Achievement Award in the field of nutrition by the Imperial and Cancer Patient Aid Association and Jitabai Women Achievers Award. She has also been felicitated by the President of India for her work in the field of nutrition. She has also been listed amongst the 25 most powerful women in the country by the India Today group. Ishi, I'm so proud of you. What a huge body of work in different, through different ways and means, how you've been able to contribute to the field of nutrition and healthy life, and what a tremendous achievement over the years. So very proud of you, my dear friend. And just to add on to this, I need to tell everybody that Ishi and I go way back from the days of modern school Road in Delhi, and the way Ishi is really as warm, well-meaning, and gracious. She's always there to help and support all of us, giving lots of tips about good food, healthy living habits, etc. वो बात अलग है कि हम में से कुछ, जिसमें सबसे पहले मैं अपने आप को मानती हूँ कि बहुत ज़्यादा फॉलो नहीं करती और बहुत indisciplined हो जाती हूँ, and for that she also keeps whipping me many times, but she is so gracious in not taking a second speech to each one of us with some tip and some information to improve our lifestyles, to improve our health. So, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, I am going to take off now with Ishi because there's so many questions कि मैं एकदम अब शुरू करना चाहूँगी Ishi. So, can I just start off, or would you like to say something?
Just to say that thank you for your kind words, and it is my privilege to be here with you and with my a lot of my school community, which I really, really value. And I hope we can have an interesting conversation, and look forward to the next 1 hour. And you may mention a lot of things, but I have to say that at the end of the day, God has been kind, and I just feel blessed. So I would just leave it at that.
Lovely. I can see some people are saying that my voice is getting a bit garbled, and it is not very clear. Will you just give me half a second? I need to just check. I don't see any problem really. But can somebody tell me from the chat whether I can be heard or I can't be heard?
I can hear you very well, Dipali.
Okay, but some people on the chat are saying that I'm not audible. So I just want to know from somebody who can tell me from the chat. It's better now. Okay. Radhika says, Radhika Chopra. Ishi, you know Radhika very well, the revered nightingale of the country.
Who doesn't know Radhika? Who doesn't know her?
Yes, yes.
I know her for more than one reasons.
Which is?
She's been there for us. She did attempt some diet-related journey with me. which probably is still, I always say, work in progress. But yes, she supported a lot of my work, including work for the Celiac Society. So she's very, very well known and very precious.
How nice. Lovely. So I'm going to now jump to the first question, Ishi. Now, I have a lot of questions which have come in. I'll quickly take the names who've made the effort to send in questions, which include Surya Ganesha, Rashmi, Jayamitra, Anshumitra, Rajamani, and some people randomly also on my center. So the moment the communication went out in public domain and they got to know who started getting questions. Can you hear me? Because you're trying to put your ear close.
Now it's a bit garbled.
Oh.
Could you just repeat your question? I didn't get it actually.
No, I haven't started the question yet. I was talking about how people sent me messages to ask you questions. The sound is getting garbled. I really am not able to figure out why.
But now I think I'm okay. I could hear you.
It's garbled again. I'm going to just continue. People are saying the sound is getting garbled. I think, could you just please check if there is anything mobile? Friends, I'm a little surprised at what to do with the network, but yeah, somebody is fine now. So I'm going to continue. So, Ishi, my first question before I get into the conversation about you, I need to understand very briefly about your background and your education and the fact that way back you didn't really know too much about nutrition. You decided to take up nutrition as a course. How did you decide that? So briefly about your background, briefly about your education, and how did you get into nutrition?
Yeah. So I guess there are a few things probably which contributed to this. First of all, I feel it was my family background, which was my mother had been a student of nutrition, and my father was a chemist. I mean, he had a degree in chemistry. So the household was very foodie. So I guess the combination was very compelling, and there were conversations around food which were rather scientific, and I kind of absorbed all that. And so that was one. And I also feel that my own weight problem, I think you know me from school, and you would remember that I was not slim, I was actually fat. And my cousins called me fatty, and I was quite a fatso. And probably somewhere in class 6, 7, when I was 13 or 14, it became something, I don't remember a conscious feeling of feeling inadequate, but certainly I did something about my weight on my own, and I started studying calorie intake and output, and started managing my diet, and lost a lot of weight on my own. And I think in class 9, I had lost a lot of weight. And by class 10, I was quite slim. And I remember Kona Roy, our English teacher, used to call me Thinny Pinny, and what's happened to you? And that was a time we were supposed to decide, and we were in the medical group. And and I had thought I will do medicine. But this fascinated me so much, the impact of what I was eating on my skin and what was happening to my body with the food. I think that was a transition which I made, and I said, no, I think I am going to do not going to do medicine. I didn't even fill up one entrance form to help me do my nutrition, and that's how I think probably I'm doing what I'm doing. And I have to say that I'm so glad that I did, because it's a field which is so connected to oneself and on a daily basis, and it is so meaningful. And so I think it's a combination of my background and my personal story.
There is some technical issue. I think your Wi-Fi is needs to be. It's getting a bit garbled and it's getting a bit. Uh, your Wi-Fi needs to just look into Ishi or
Really?
yeah. In between, I couldn't really get you properly because it kind of started to get a bit messy. Can you just speak something? Can you just say something? I'll get a understanding of it. These are the horrors of technology. What to do? We just have to go through this. I think every session that has happened has had its own share of it. But that's the way it is. We just have to.
So,
Somebody.
is this okay now?
They're saying that I'm not very. Okay, I'm trying to just also put my earphones and see. Can you speak something?
Yeah, I'm okay. I can hear you. I hope people can hear me.
Yes, I hope people can hear us now because I've also tried to, I'm not really allowed to wear earphones, but I've done that. Okay, Rashmi says it's better. So coming to my next question, Nishi, I mean, that was obviously a decision that you took way back then, which has turned out to be, gain for people today, because I think with nutrition and health and good health foods and healthy living, people have become so much more conscientious over the years, which during our times, of course, health was always a matter of great concern, but people really didn't know ways and means of trying to find out how we could really understand the art and science behind food. So from college, you of course went and joined various prime hospitals of the city, and then got affiliated yourself with some senior doctors. And somewhere down the line, you also decided to get into your independent practice of dietary counseling in Delhi. So what prompted you then? I mean, did you see that there was an opportunity coming up, and you felt that it was time to branch out and start giving counseling to people and scale it up?
I think you got it right. It was probably a combination of all of this. It was a complete belief in the need for improving people's diets and the need to provide proper options and alternatives to food which they were eating. So, and as I practiced for about eight plus years at the Escorts Heart Institute in the Department of Prevention and Rehabilitation, I found that cardiac patients, diabetics, obese patients just were suffering needlessly on account of misinformation, too much parhez, not understanding the importance of good fats versus bad fats, going crazy about cholesterol-related issues, which were unwarranted restrictions, and then also not getting the right food available. I didn't set out to be an entrepreneur at all. It was not a part of my dream. But when I realized that there was somebody had to do something, and this was just not happening at an industrial level, and I just decided to do it in a small way for the limited number of people I could help. And so it really was, that was the sentiment behind it, and that is how the journey began. And being in Escorts, of course, was my stepping stone. Dr. Trehan was most gracious in giving me a position with all the flexibility and timing issues, all that were. So because I had kids and I wanted to manage and do a work-life balance. So I think I was very, very fortunate, and I thank Dr. Trehan for giving me that stepping stone. And from then on, I felt that the kids were grown up, and I was also feeling that I needed to widen the scope of my work, because here I was dealing with a certain kind of patients, and there were healthy people who wanted to see me too. And so I needed to get out of that space and also work with patients who were really not sick. And so I think that was really how it panned out for me, and there was no looking back. And it was quite a bold decision to quit the hospital for a private practice in those days, where a standalone nutritionist was unheard of, and also to start a venture into a business venture simultaneously, again probably the first of its kind. So yes, it was a bold decision, but I guess it was the timing was right, and God has been kind.
Yes, of course, and it worked out also very well. And look at the way you have, scaled it all up, and how you've been adding value to people's lives. I think that is what is really important. Now, coming straight to this question of, Ishi, in fact, to say that we really don't understand the art and science behind a healthy, balanced diet. We all know, which is something that is commonly understood, that we talk about the term of well-balanced diet, which comprises of nutrients, whether it is to do with carbs, proteins, fibers, fats, minerals, vitamins, water, etc. But, at the end of the day, to have a well-balanced diet on a daily basis is such a challenge, Ishi. Samajh hi nahi aata how to balance the diet. We know it all, but to do it is a real challenge. So you have to give me some,
Yeah.
I just want you to give the viewers and all of us an understanding, and maybe some simple tips to understand how do we really look at having a well-balanced diet and maintaining it on a daily basis, because that is really something that needs to be done. But I don't think most of us are able to put our minds to it diligently and do it on a regular basis.
You're echoing everything that people, when they come to me, they say. But let me give you good news here.
Yeah.
That is really not your fault. We keep blaming ourselves. We keep feeling guilty. Keep wrestling with our willpower. But food is something we love. We all the listening audience, all of us, including me, we have a relationship which is common. And that relationship is a relationship with food. We love our food. We all love our food. Some may be more, some may be less. It's a need, but we also love it. So why are we at war with it? We are all fighting, which is why when you ask me what should I speak, what should the topic be, I said, let's just keep it to redefining our relationship with food. Why are we fighting with something which we know, there's a piece of cake lying in front of you, and or a packet of chips, and you know you're not supposed to have it, but you will end up finishing it and then feeling guilty. It's not okay. It's not necessary.
We've got it all I'm going to interject. I'm sorry, I'm going to interject. I think your voice is coming and going. Can you come closer to the to your laptop? And is your Wi-Fi okay? Because your image suddenly goes a bit. Something goes wrong with the video.
I'm not able to figure out what's going on, but I am able to
continue.
See you.
Just come a little closer to the laptop so that you're closer to the mic, so that your sound doesn't go. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So let me know if this is audible. Is it audible now?
It's audible, but your image is becoming a little hazy. That's what Rashmi is saying, because I think there is some sort of a problem with the connection. Your image is blurred, and sound is coming a bit late. It's lagging.
Yeah.
Friends, just bear with us. Okay. We are just, in the hands of technology, trying to, yeah. So, okay, I think just be close to the laptop. Yeah. Yeah. So continue.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So I said we don't need to be wrestling with our willpower. It's something which we all do all the time. We don't need to. Food is meant to be enjoyed, and food is meant to be palatable, and food is meant to be just something we live with on a daily basis. So we have to have a positive relationship with food. And the reasons why we need to wrestle with our willpower is simply because the nature of the food. Just one sec. I just get.
Sanjay, yes, I know. Her message is important, not the image we've seen her. Okay. Yes, tell me. Archana Luthra is saying the image is still hazy.
Oh, Archana knows me enough. She can hear me.
Okay, as long as people can get your understandings and they can listen to you and get the message across, that will be wonderful. Okay. Yeah, carry on, Ichi.
I think the nature of the food that we are eating over the last, I would say, half a century has changed very dramatically. What our ancestors ate and what we are eating has really, really changed. And whether it is the industrialization of food, the commercial production of food, the agricultural practices. So all of this has led to a change in the checks and balances which are situated in our gut, which means that we all, let me give you an example of a baby or an animal in the wild for that matter. They never need to be told. A baby knows when to stop. You cannot give that extra drop of milk or food to a baby. Why? Because there are innate checks and balances. We all have them. We were born with them. Sure. But with the wrong food, with the nature of the food, which has affected, which we call inflammatory foods, have destroyed or tampered with the regulatory mechanisms we all have. And I am sounding a bit abstract here, but this is a fact that when people who come to me change their diets, within a short span of a week, 10 days, their eating behavior changes. They no longer get attracted to the foods which they were compelled to eat at one time. And to the extent that I always remember this mother who came to me with a young child, a daughter of the age of about 14, 15, who was obese, but who was a tennis champion and was playing 2 hours of tennis every day and wanting to lose weight, but was only gaining weight. And when we started working with her, within 2-3 weeks, she was feeling a lot different. And she had done several diets in the past and they were not helping her. And she came back and she said, I don't know what you've done. Besides the weight loss, of course, she's lost about 3 kgs. But there's something that has changed in this child. And are you doing something else? Because my maid is saying that आप इसको डॉक्टर के पास नहीं लेके जा रहे, आप इसको कोई जादू टोना करा रहे, क्योंकि बेबी का खाना बिल्कुल बदल गया. You know what I'm saying? That yes. We can restore our innate system of eating correctly, which we are all born with, only by correcting our food. And there are addictive components in our food. A lot of the inflammatory foods and the proteins that we are consuming today, including wheat and gluten and dairy and the processed food and the additives, they hurt our gut. And they also have addictive components. So in wheat, we have gluteomorphine. In dairy, we have casomorphine. Sugar is addictive. It has opioid effects. And we have a new understanding of our body, a whole new system. When we studied biology, Dipali, we didn't even know of a system called an endocannabinoid system. this is a new in the last 10 years, where it is identifying certain receptors in our body which compel us to eat or behave in a certain way.
Sure.
And this is related to addiction. So there are addictive foods, and once we correct the balance of these foods in our body, in our diet, our body behaves differently, and we don't have to fight with our.
So, Ishi, you see, the whole problem is, the whole challenge is that how do you balance it on a daily basis? We just need to have a simple understanding, really, to be able to follow it. Of course, it's got to do with our discipline, it's got to do with our awareness and understanding, but somewhere to maintain this well-balanced diet is always a bit of a challenge. So if you can give us just quickly some maybe 5 simple tips, that what is it that we should be really looking at when we are planning our diet for the day?
Yeah, I knew you're going to ask me this, Ivan. And it's the question which is I am asked most commonly. And for this, in my latest book, Eating at Work, I have put what I call the 3 Ps. In the book, it is 5 Ps, but it's easier to remember 3 Ps. So it's a framework which will enable anybody, anywhere, to be able to manage their diet. Because it's very easy for me to sit on this chair and for you to listen and to go back and continue doing whatever you're doing, because nutrition and food and diet is so close to our heart and so, like I said, important to us, that knowledge can only do that much. You end up doing what you want to do. So, and it is, yeah, I mean, we all know that.
Yeah.
And that is, it's something so cultural. We relate to food in so many different ways. I got a call from some aunt of mine after 30 years, and she said, I'm calling you just to tell you that I'm making a recipe you gave me 35 years ago, or 30 years ago, you had made it. So the connection with food is so, special and different. So to be just talking about the wisdom of food and just the sheer knowledge of food and the correctness of food is not going to work. So we have to make our food do both. It has to satisfy our palate. It has to make us feel good and also nourish. So it should not be a toxic relationship. It should be a relationship that actually nurtures you. So the 3 Ps are really the way I look at food. Most of us look at food as carbohydrates and proteins and fats, like you said, and how on earth is anyone, myself as a nutritionist, I don't calculate anything. I just look at food groups. I just look at vegetables, proteins, and cereals. So let's talk food. The biggest mistake science has made is to communicate nutrition as nutrients to people. It should be only in terms of what they eat and understand. So going back to the 3 Ps, it's planning, proteins, and protective foods. So let's start with proteins. Proteins, everyone understands. They are most critical today, particularly when we're talking about immunity and our health and our well-being with the COVID, etc. So ensure that your 2 meals have adequate protein, whether it's a combination of animal protein and plant protein. I think in this audience, everyone understands proteins. So it's the eggs, fish, chicken, sprouts, pulses, dals, and even nuts to some extent are protein rich. And some vegetables are also rich in proteins like peas and mushrooms, etc. So at least 2 meals should be rich in proteins, and these proteins should always be taken paired with vegetables. So proteins are acidic in nature and vegetables are usually alkaline in nature when you combine them, or with fruits. But ideally, they should be together, or ensure that you have, if you're having that much portion of protein, that at least double the portion of vegetables should be there on your plate. So that's one rule with the proteins. And protective foods, which means what we talk about immunity today, all the vegetables, the fruits, the various colors in vegetables and fruits, our nuts, our fermented foods, our probiotics, our husks, our, the fibers, all of these are protective foods. So prebiotics, probiotics. So at least dedicate one meal of the day to these protective foods, right? And it's not hard. Even having nuts and maybe a stir fry vegetable or something, it's so important. So dedicate that one meal of the day. It could be a morning breakfast with just fruits. It could be an evening soup and salad, or soup and cooked vegetables, or in lunch with salads, whatever it is. It's very simple to do. Lastly is planning, which means your cereals, your carbs. Most people look at food as rice and roti and breads and dosas and idlis and pastas, and that's culturally what it has been. So we can't deny that. So this is a group which you should have according to your needs, not according to the fact that you have to eat them in all meals. Which means if you are fighting flab, if you are fighting belly fat, you probably don't need more than one meal of the day with these cereals. If you're a sports person, you probably need all three, or you need two, depending on who you are. And the choice of these cereals is very important, which means we are seeing a lot of gluten sensitivity and soya, and a lot of these grains are becoming problems in people's diets. So what it is that is good for you, you can determine either by your own self or by through tests, and see what are your cereals which are anti-inflammatory for you, which are suiting you, and accordingly your choice can be made. In India, we have a variety of grains which are, even if you are intolerant to certain grains, which are can be consumed and easily available. And then we also need to understand, so what you're eating, how much you're eating, and when you're eating. So planning is also about not eating late in the day. So when you eat most of your food in the early part of the day. Don't load up your system at the wrong time, because that can be counterproductive to all that you've done. I know people who are doing intermittent fasting today, but they're eating mostly at night, and that is really not okay as a habit. It can be as an exception, but not as a habit. So timing is important. And, our ancient practitioners of health, the Ayurveda, the Upanishads, all of it has these simple rules. And in the Chakra Samhita, it says, the man who wants a long life, I've read this myself, that a man who wants a long life must not eat cereals after sunset.
Yes.
And the man who has digestive problems must not eat cereal more than once a day. That's exactly what we've been saying, So it's so beautifully now science is validating these messages, and we have a great deal of information on how people get ill, why people are ill, and it all begins in the gut. And that's what all the practitioners of health said earlier. So I think today, if we recognize these, the 3P formula is probably it's difficult to oversimplify nutrition, but if it has to be, then this is probably the closest it can get for me to explain it to you. And of course, there are so many other, parts to it. And I hope it works for it.
So that's a great deal of understanding. And if people need to know more, because otherwise to yahan sari raat nikal jayegi, so people need to either refer to your book, or refer to what you write, or they come and meet you. So this takes me to the next question, that, you have been working, very, very diligently with the Celiac Society of India. So what is really the message that you try to spread through this initiative of yours? Ishi, I can see the time is ticking really fast. So we'll have to wrap up the answers also as quickly, because I really have a lot of questions. We are going to certainly go beyond our time, but requesting you to just take up the questions quickly. So please tell us about the Celiac Society and the message behind it.
Well, again, it was a completely providence that led me to this path. I was not particularly attracted to this condition, but it was in the family, and I realized how little medical professionals in those days were aware of this condition, and how difficult it was to diagnose it, because even in my space, I realized that we were not able to figure out what was the reason for, somebody's low hemoglobin. And, so it was really a deep concern of the fact that this condition is not what it was described as in medical textbooks. And for those who don't understand celiac disease, let me not take it for granted. So it's a disease where an individual cannot digest gluten, and this protein in wheat attacks the intestines so badly that it causes malabsorption of food and nutrients, and can lead to several diseases, including autoimmune problems. Autoimmune problems today, right from, we understand, right from thyroid problems to skin problems, alopecia. There are about a bunch of over 100 conditions which are associated with autoimmunity today, which is really growing. And the fact that celiac disease itself is an autoimmune problem, and if it goes undiagnosed or untreated, it leads to autoimmune issues. And ultimately, if it goes really untreated, it can lead to cancers of the liver and the digestive tract, and other lymphomas as well. So it's a very serious condition, and it cannot be taken just as, and a lot of people who have it don't know it, because, the textbook description is very different. So doctors are not being able to pick it up. So the symptoms are very, very diverse. Like we are talking about COVID today, there is no one set of symptoms. It can be a headache, it can be a skin problem, it can be sometimes just no symptoms, completely atypical, and you're suffering and your intestines are getting damaged, and there's a huge level of inflammation in the body. So it was very important for me to, when I understood this, that, in our country, it's not, because I was dealing with the top professionals in the country, and it seemed like the awareness was very limited. And so the Celiac Society was set up with a whole, bunch of my own colleagues and, professionals, researchers in celiac disease, to make it, a mission to make people aware of this condition. It needs a diagnosis, early diagnosis and management. So it requires a lifelong gluten-free diet. And this was started in 2006. But about 10 years ago, we realized that there was another entity which meant that it is called non-celiac wheat sensitivity, where the individual does not have celiac disease, but he has the same symptoms and the same manifestations as celiac disease. And the end, the risk to diseases is absolutely the same, but the manner on which the damage to the gut is happening is different. So it is not celiac disease, but it is the same way it needs to be treated and managed. And today, that explains a whole lot of people who are suffering from thyroid problems, increased risk of cancers, infertility, asthma, skin and eczema, psoriasis, epilepsy, neurological problems, Alzheimer's, dementia, you name it. I mean, literally every single cell can be damaged because of this condition. So this is a whole new entity. And for this, for the first time in India, we had an international conference called the International Symposium on Wheat-Related Disorders. We had people from across the globe, from New Zealand, from Europe to US, who have researched on this and presented their work to the Indian audience. And this is probably the first thing we've done. I mean, first big thing we've done, and we plan to make it a regular event in the future. And so that it was again just a personal journey which has led me to do this.
No, but this information is so important because, if people are not really aware of it, it needs to be spoken about, which is what you're really doing. And it was with the same intention that, one wanted to really know about it so that the larger audience gets to know about this. So when you were touching upon about the fact of a gluten-free diet, Ishi, is a gluten-free diet recommended only because of celiac, or is it also recommended because of other reasons? And is a celiac different from a wheat allergy? Are they two different, distinct things?
That's an absolutely fabulous question. So there is an umbrella of what we call wheat-related disorders. And in that, the first one is celiac disease. And then we have what I just mentioned, non-celiac wheat sensitivity, which is not wheat allergy, neither is celiac disease wheat allergy. Wheat allergy is a very different form of sensitivity to wheat, where you actually sneeze and cough or get stomach cramps or loose motions when you eat wheat. And it is a very rare, relatively uncommon condition. And then there is a fourth new entity, which is called adverse reactions to wheat, which I will not talk about it because it will get too much information right now. But
Sure.
yes, the celiac disease and non-celiac wheat sensitivity work differently in the body, but they do the same things. And celiac, both need to be managed with a very strict gluten-free diet. And there are people who come and tell me that, okay, occasional cheating should be fine. We've lived with wheat all our life. How come it's become so serious for us, etc., etc. But there is real science behind it. And yes, the meticulous compliance to a gluten-free diet in both is required.
Okay, somebody was wanting to ask you, Nina Sanyal, she said, if you're lactose intolerant and fruit intolerant, what is it that one should be doing?
So she's probably reacting to the sugars. Lactose is a sugar in milk, and the fructose in fruits. And obviously, she has a disturbed gut. And I think we did speak about the importance of gut. All of this in the gut is mediated through what we call gut flora. Gut flora is the microbiome, the microflora, which comprises of a large part of our gut and is responsible for literally who we are, literally for our immune function, for our for just about everything in terms of our health, inflammation, whether we are going to be thin or fat, whether we're going to have a happy personality or a sad personality. There is a whole gut and brain connection. So right from our mood to our, the risk to diseases is determined by the gut flora or the gut microbiome. When we don't eat right, or we don't eat well, or we are irresponsible with our lifestyle, we affect our gut flora negatively. This is called dysbiosis. And dysbiosis is when your body begins to develop food sensitivities. And perhaps she has developed a sensitivity to the sugars in the foods, which is very, very common. And this leads to, this dysbiosis leads to a leaky gut. Today, it's not such an uncommon word, so I'm using it. In scientific language, it's called intestinal permeability, where large molecules of food undigested reach the blood and cause sensitivities, which is why we are seeing gluten sensitivity and dairy sensitivity, and now we have issues like fruit sugars, etc., etc. So she definitely needs to go deeper into the gut. She needs to do some blood work on foods, foods which are working for her, which are not working for her, and then heal the gut by elimination of those foods. And she probably can take some professional advice that will help her. And taking probiotics, first elimination of the foods which she's sensitive to, and then building up the gut and restoring good flora is very important. So she needs to, very often we find that dysbiosis is also associated with nutritional. Dysbiosis means an imbalanced gut flora. Good and the bad cops, good and the bad, the policemen and the good people. There is a, imbalance. We have to correct that balance. So we find that when there is dysbiosis, there is also nutritional deficiency. We find people with a bad gut having low levels of vitamin D, B12, iron, and calcium and magnesium, etc., etc. So when you correct that, also when you're looking at the gut, you need to address nutritional deficiencies as well.
Ishi, the topic about gut is so important, really. I mean, it's becoming increasingly important, I think, as we are all evolving and whatever influences of our life, whether to essentially because it just enhances your improvement of immune system, your state of mental health, improving your stress, and enhancing your moods, and of course, besides other autoimmune diseases. And I have personally felt that if for any reason I get anxious or stressed about something, which is,
I think we've lost Dipali because of some bad internet connection. I'm sure we'll be seeing her very soon. I would just like to probably use this time to address the concerns today which people have regarding immunity, etc., with COVID-19, which seems to be staying longer than it really should. The thing is, I think we've spoken a lot about the gut flora, etc. We need to understand two things. A, that we need to bring down inflammation in our body through the right foods, and we need to address nutritional deficiencies which are important, and a lot of the nutrients which we are deficient in are also rich in antioxidants. Hi, welcome back.
Hi, sorry, my electricity went off, and by the time I could switch over, I'm sorry, carry on.
No, I just thought I would continue the chat on,
yes,
because we were talking about the gut and the immune function. So I said maybe we could just talk a little bit about the COVID-19 and the issues which people are
sure.
dealing with today. So we've spoken a lot about protective foods, and we've spoken a lot about good gut flora. A little bit about the importance of certain nutrients, which again people are pretty much aware of. But vitamin D, since we were talking about the leaky gut, vitamin D has become extremely important because it helps to join and repair the leaky gut and restore the gut balance and the good and bad gut flora. So, and thereby it helps in protecting, protecting you from inflammation and in boosting your immunity. So that's one of the important functions of vitamin D. And zinc and vitamin C, we are all aware of their role in immunity building. And certain antioxidants, vitamin A, E, of course, selenium, zinc. So they're basically, people really can't do so many individual things. So it's nice to just take a multivitamin and some specific pills which give you extra zinc. And there's one under-recognized vitamin called magnesium. We all know about calcium, but we don't talk about magnesium, which is difficult to document deficiency in the blood. In blood tests, we don't get to know the real levels. And we are all, thanks to various reasons, not getting the adequate amounts of magnesium, which also has a huge role to play in immunity. So whoever is listening today, if you want to look at immunity building, your goals should be to take adequate amounts of vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and vitamin beta A and beta carotene, and also calcium and magnesium, which are very, very important. So addressing nutritional deficiencies is also an important part of immunity building, and the wonderful immunity boosting spices and the traditional herbs that we have and which everyone's consuming right now, to the kadas, etc. Word of caution, please don't overdo them. I just said individually our bodies are very unique because of our gut floras. Some bodies are heaty and some bodies are cooling. We don't know what is our specific type of constitution. So, and it's pretty hot outside, because I'm seeing a lot of patients coming up with problems like bleeding, fever, rashes, etc., because of excessive consumption of or regular consumption of these herbs and spices. So please give them a break. So over to you, Dipali.
Yeah. So
for your next question.
Yes, I did miss out in between, but that's fine. I'm sure you've been able to answer their queries very well and added value with whatever you have said so far. So I also wanted to understand that, we all understand the healthy combination of diet is based on plants and animals, plant-based and animal-based. So what is your take on vegan diet? I mean, what do you really recommend to people who are now becoming vegan? And, so how do you, what is the kind of diet that you talk about as far as the vegan diet is concerned, and how do you balance it out for them?
Yeah, again, that's a great question. Veganism has become really popular, and people feel very good when they remove animal food from their diet. And a lot of them do it out of other sentiments, or because of a respect for the ecosystem. And yes, it certainly has a huge role to play in protecting our environment. And to say that any vegan follower is at risk for developing nutritional deficiencies, that's really only partially true. If you have a well-balanced diet, which is based on plant food, with some supplements, you are in a good place to enjoy good health as much as if you were taking animal products. So I strongly, of course, animal food. My take on this is that if you are really serious about veganism, then do your blood work and check out for vitamin B12 and some other iron and zinc, etc., and make up for those through supplements. And please go ahead. And the other reason why I feel a lot of people feel good on eating having no dairy is because about 50% of people who have a wheat sensitivity, that means they have a bad gut, also have a dairy sensitivity. And when you cut out at least one part of the offenders, you feel certainly much, much better. And these certainly are great trends. And if you are able to balance out your nutrients and eat healthy, I'm all for it. But I particularly myself, or I don't advocate it, and I don't follow it myself.
Rashmi says that a friend became nutritional imbalanced with vegan diet. Should one do it continuously or sporadically? That's a strange one.
No,
I guess once you become a vegan, you become a vegan. So how do you do that?
You need to look at nutrients. And, veganism is also about not having butter and not having ghee and not having honey. So I personally, I don't have a view on those, and therefore I don't advocate it. I believe that if you are, whatever you eat should be right, which means it's not just the omission of certain foods, it's whatever you actually eat and choose to eat will determine your health status. So if you're a non-vegetarian and if you eat animal protein in moderation, in maybe sometimes a few days in a week, in small portions, but as long as your overall diet is rich in vegetables, in plant proteins, in fruits, and in good fats and fiber, you are okay. So I personally would go with a little bit of conventional advice here. But having said that, today animal protein is not so simple. It also has many varieties. Like dairy, we have so many varieties of dairy. Today we have A2 milk, and we have A1 milk, and we have adulterated milk, and we have pesticide and antibiotic laden milk. So likewise in animal protein, these are issues which are there. In fish, we have heavy metal toxicity, and in the poultry, we have hormones and antibiotics. None of these are exaggerations. None of these are imaginary. These are real issues, and of course, they will affect our health. But whether it is animals or whether it's plants, it's pretty much the same. But yes, coming through animals, it becomes a little more serious. So if you are taking animal protein, try and get free range, organic, and limit your intake if you must.
Ishi, you know that I'm now a life coach as well. So something that is very close to my heart in terms of understanding the synergy between food and our mind. We as life coaches, of course, talk about mental strength and inner engineering, and we have our ways and means of helping people out with our, whether it is to do with our tools, whether it is to do with our understanding and content, etc. But to create a synergy between our mental state of mind, and to be able to give a boost to our, to boost to improving our memory and reducing our anxieties and depressions, etc., through food. What is it that you recommend? What are those kinds of foods quickly which can help in terms of improving depression and anxiety and diminish all kind of negativity and also enhance memory? So what would you like to contribute?
So many expectations from food, and they're totally real, and they should be. And again, I go back to our ancestors, and the one-liner which would probably answer your question is Jaisa an, वैसा मन.
ठीक बात है.
This is again coming from sources which were buried somewhere and we lost touch with them. Jaisa an, वैसा मन is actually true, so true. Aham anam, you are what you eat, also is from the Upanishad. So, going back into choosing the right kind of grain, preventing inflammation. I'll just give you a simple example. I just talked about the probiotic angle in the gut flora. Today, scientists have inoculated gut flora from a depressed individual to a happy individual, and vice versa, from a happy individual to a depressed individual. And they have completely changed. The happy person becomes sad and the sad becomes happy. And when I'm saying sad, it is depression.
Yeah.
It is so profound. It is so profound.
Sure.
Body weight. They have lean and obese. Translocation of gut flora from one to the other. It's all done at research level. It's not being done in practice. But they find just changing the bacteria from that obese person to the non-obese person, it just changes the profile of that person completely. So I think it's important to go into what you eat, what you digest, what you don't digest. And if you want a simple answer to this, to be very honest, I don't have one. But yes, look at nutritional deficiencies. I'm able to tweak a person's anxiety and depression literally in a matter of few weeks just by eliminating the inflammatory foods and adding the nutritional elements back into their diet. And when these individuals contaminate or have exposure to the offending substances, they roll back into feeling their old ways. It's pure science. And I've had patients who have been on antidepressants for 20 years and have been told by their treating, psychiatrists that, this is something they'll have to live with. And, they get off these medicines within a matter of a few months, and you can't get rid of these medicines just overnight. You need to phase them out. But we've done that, and these individuals are medicine free. And I'm doing it all the time because it is all connected to the gut flora. We build up the gut flora, we address the nutritional deficiencies, we eliminate the offenders, and it's a very, very clear evidence that we have what we call a gut and brain axis. And this is again just a very recent research in the last 10 years. And it has led scientists to even say that we have two brains. We have one brain, which we already know of, and in the head, and we have a second brain in our gut. So,
absolutely. So that's great piece of information. And I want to just know, somebody in fact has posed a question. Her name is Usha Chopra. She wants to know which grain is most easily digestible.
Well, according to our conventional understanding of grains and our experience, I think rice is perhaps the most hypoallergenic grain. Wheat, in any case, is a known allergen. There are 8 allergens that we know of, and wheat and eggs and shellfish it's a known allergen. It does have immunogenic properties. Rice is not in that category, and I would probably give it the
You
most
would give your vote to rice. Okay. Now, we hear a lot about high
Here,
protein.
one more thing I'll add here that, talking about our country, India, we were essentially, according to the evidence that is available, rice eating. We were all, Dravidians, and we were a rice eating country till we had invasions and impact of the other civilizations.
Correct. So, moving on, we also, these days we know that there is a lot of talk, and people are following high protein and low carb diet, concentrating too much on proteins and, skipping carbs. How much is it really advisable in your opinion? How do we know that we are not really going off balance in terms of this whole thing of taking a lot more proteins and cutting down on our carbs?
I think it's a fabulous question, because I do see that in my practice as well. And particularly these youngsters who are going to gyms, and even today, it's not only youngsters, even adults, senior citizens, they are being made to believe that they are deficient in proteins through faulty calculations, through wrong formulas. MS for any individual is 0.75 grams per kg body weight, and what they are told is something like 1 gram per pound of body weight. So immediately you are made to believe that you're getting only half.
Ishi, I think your connectivity is now going a little bit haywire. Yeah. Can you just come a little closer to your camera?
I'm back. Yeah. Okay. Is that okay? Yeah. So I think there is a risk of
just to hear you better. Yeah.
Okay. So I think the calculation also needs to be understood by each one of us, that if your body weight is say 60 kgs, you need only about 0.75 grams of that 60 kgs, which is about 50 kgs at 50 grams of protein at best. And if you're really undergoing intensive training or cardiovascular exercise or weight training, you probably need a little extra. So 1 gram per kg body weight. And if you're doing extremely competitive levels, and 1.5 grams per kg body weight. So you don't really need very, very high levels of protein. And excess protein can cause damage to not only your digestive system, but also your liver and your kidney, and leads to increased inflammation. And I have gym goers who have been at their fittest and have had heart attacks because of increased inflammation. So excess protein is to be guarded against, and high protein is only when it is needed. And also, like I said, since proteins are acidic, ensure that if you are taking a protein-rich diet, you do don't take a high protein diet unless warranted. But if you are taking your proteins, ensure you're combining them with adequate amounts of vegetables or fruits.
Wonderful. Tushar Juneja wants to know, can you talk a little bit about irritable bowel syndrome?
Well, we are... Sorry?
So yes, you can just address this question. Yeah.
It's a very common condition, and very often I'm able to simply treat it by addressing, eliminating foods, particularly it has a lot to do with gluten. People who have an irritable bowel syndrome, we don't know chicken or egg, whether the gluten sensitivity caused it or the IBS is with the whatever came first, we can't say. But yes, elimination of gluten and dairy certainly are very, very important in managing IBS. We need to give probiotics, as well as certain elimination of certain other grains which behave or mimic wheat including corn, soya, oats, and even sometimes amaranth, which are the healthy grains. So once we are able to fix that, most people bounce back. And irritable bowel syndrome is nothing but irritation in the gut. And some people go through constipation and diarrhea alternate with each other. And it's very easy to fix it. And sometimes there could be undiagnosed celiac disease. So anybody who comes with an IBS, kind of a diagnosis needs to look out for celiac disease as well. And a food sensitivity test will really help.
Sure. I hope, Tushar, that helps you have your answer to your question. Now, Ishi, we see a lot of these opinions which keep getting changed and formulated. For example, ghee at one point of time was considered very good. Then came up the theory that ghee chodo, because cholesterol levels vagera, they all go haywire and they go high. And now again they are saying कि ghee khana shuru karo. So, with these changing opinions and studies, it does get very confusing. So what is really the ideal choice according to you today about ghee and also the hydrogenated oils? What do you recommend? What is really ideal for cooking and for consumption, whether it is ghee or the hydrogenated oils or a combination? I don't know whether I've lost you. Are you there, Ishi? I don't see Ishi on the screen. I think we are kind of taking turns today to, get off air suddenly. Let me try and see how we get her back. Friends, you will just have to give me a second. I'm just trying to figure it out. So far, the conversation, I hope, has been extremely useful and beneficial for all of you on the show. I have so many questions. I'm sorry, I'm perhaps not being able to really take too many questions which are popping up on the chat, but I'm trying my level best. We are already an hour and 15 minutes up, and I still have so much to ask her. But I don't know how this technology is playing havoc with us. I mean, we are kind of mohtaj and technology case, so we just have to bear with it. I'm trying to send her the invitation again to get her back online. In the meantime, we will continue our conversation. And Sanjay, I can see you really active on the chat, because I know health is a very important subject with you. You have written, I take out oil at home, pure oil. What about desi ghee? Do you also use desi ghee, or is it only about oil? And what kind of oil do you take out? I'd be interested in knowing if you can put it on your chat. Yes, Tushar, I'm trying to get her back in a second. I'm just trying to figure out what has gone wrong. Fahim says protein-rich diet also works for protein synthesis in body for making hormone like insulin and glucagon. Okay, so that's a question, Fahim, that you want me to ask. I will. Yes, Sanjay. Desi ghee is the best. That's what we understand. And that's what our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents, all of them used to have desi ghee, and suddenly the theories come up, and then we get to know that desi ghee chhod diya jaye because of the harmful impact it has on our cholesterol, etc. And then this situation again comes up. So it does get confusing. But yeah, I'm glad to know that you're following and doing things, and you're doing a lot of things at home yourself. Yes. So Preeta, all veggies are made in mustard oil or desi ghee. Yes, mustard oil is a great oil to use. So we have always known, and so you burn out the oil and you cook, and it is, it's supposed to be really the best and not harmful at all. And Anam, I'm glad you're finding the information relevant and useful. Unfortunately, we are getting these technical snags. I'm trying to get her back. Anam, your question is to ask her about 5 or 10 food items that people should avoid after 50. That's an interesting question. Coming from a young girl like you, I'm sure I'll ask her for sure, but I think I know your concern for sure, which is why you are asking this question. Hi, Meenakshi, good to see you online. Throw refined oil. It's nothing but poison. Sure. Friends, I'm just trying to figure it out. I know this is sad because such valuable information was being shared by Ishi on multiple topics. I just hope that she will get reconnected with me. Just give me a second, please. Yeah. I'm sorry. We have people who are trying to figure it out, but and I have to tell you, I was going through some of Ishi's testimonials of her clients. I mean, phenomenal success, and what success stories is unbelievable. I would suggest that one should track those testimonials down in her website, read about the testimonials and the cases who've had phenomenal results. I've had people who've been suffering from high diabetes turning around completely because of Ichi's treatment, and they've been having threatening diabetes in terms of their levels going up and down, and how she has been able to turn around. She's one of the case. And there was another case of Dr. Komal. I'm going to, in fact, ask Ishi to talk about it. So I'm going to just add her, friends, just hold on. Yeah. I hope I get her online. Ishi, are you there? Ishi, are you there? I can't see her. We're trying to get in touch with her. We're trying to. Surya, we've already called her. Yeah, we are in touch with her on the line. Preeta, you're right. एक time पे तो देसी घी घर पे ही बनाया जाता था. And of course, that practice is no more there now. Hi, Ishi, are you there?
No.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hear you very well.
Can you hear me, Ishi? Hi. Like I said,
you can't hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Your picture is a bit hazy, but I can. If you can just speak something, yes. I'll get to know better. No, I can't hear you. There is an issue.
Yes, I am rejoining now.
Yeah. but it's a bit staggered.
Okay now?
Yeah. So if you speak something, I'll get to know. In fact, in your absence, there are lots of comments coming about desi ghee versus oils and mustard oils and a whole lot of things. Can you hear me? No, I think there is some major problem happening. Through mobile phone? Yeah, through mobile. Okay. Ishi, are you there? Friends, I've had, in fact, a wonderful time so far, and I'm not, I'm in no doubt that all of you have also been able to garner fantabulous information so far. I will wait for, I see her going off air again. Though there are many questions which are still pending, I think I may just have to look at doing this session with her again, maybe sometime in the future, but I'm just trying to figure out if I can still get her back. Ishi, are you there? Can you hear me?
I'm there, but I don't think...
Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, but you can't hear me. I can hear you very well.
Just come closer to the to your laptop, and it may be better.
Is that better? Is that better?
The volume is a little low. The volume is a bit low.
But I haven't tampered with it actually. It's been the same.
Okay. I think you can continue. Just be a little close to the laptop.
Okay, that's okay.
Yes. So you were talking about ghee versus hydrogenated oils, and there are lots of comments which have, of course, come up about use of desi ghee and being very good, etc. So if you can quickly wrap up on that question.
Yes. Yes, there is a lot of, we've come a long way with respect to our wisdom on fats and oils, including desi ghee. They were all brushed under the same cover of being saturated, and therefore saturated fats were supposed to be bad. It was actually the hydrogenated saturated fats which were bad, which are toxic, which means these are industrially produced and they are artificial fats not recognized by our body, and they are inflammatory. So vanaspati and all the bakery products and the biscuits that we consume in hoards every day, we are beginning our day with biscuits. All of those are sources of these toxic fats. But on the other hand, our natural fats, our butter, the desi ghee, the coconut oil, are all very, very useful. And even though they are saturated, they have a place in our diet, a very special place, because they are stable. They are also very good for our gut. In fact, coconut oil and desi ghee can actually improve our gut flora. In Ayurveda, even in Ayurveda, when you fast, then you are, there's a practice of consuming ghee to lubricate the system and to restore the balance in the digestive system. And there are a lot of medicinal values of ghee, which, and particularly if the source of the ghee is a good cow, if the feed to the cow is good, and it's an A2 cow, it has even a higher value to its medicinal benefits. And so it's unfortunate that we have abandoned these. But, there are a few people who could be reacting if they are intolerant to dairy, but those are really very, very few. And that is one thing, again, I have a reservation about veganism, that it takes away these very valuable fats in our lives. And the coconut oil also is one of those fabulous fats which helps to, it has what we call medium chain triglycerides and lauric acid, which helps to improve our gut functioning. And it has a specific fat called lauric acid, which is antiviral. And today, I think that should appeal to people for more than one reasons.
Sure.
Then the issue is not only the composition of the fats, it's also how it is obtained, how we are getting it. So if it is a high heat refined, which for I think 20-30 years we all switched to refined oils, they are unfortunately not the best for us. They are in fact they are inflammatory, and they are devoid of a lot of goodness of the fat. And that is why, again, going back to our traditional practices of having cold pressed oils, our cold pressed mustard oil, our extra virgin oil, even if it's olive oil or sesame oil, all of these, when they are not highly heated, have an important benefit rather than when they are refined and high heated. So I think the story is about what fats and how they're extracted and how much. So we've all unfortunately gone in and lapped up the low fat theory, and on the contrary done what? We have increased the intake of carbohydrates in favor of fats. Again, a very detrimental trend. So yes, we've made a lot of mistakes, but I think it's time that we are far better informed. That's the beauty of science. But today, I think science is in complete alignment with our traditional beliefs and practices.
Sure.
And I think the simple rule would be to go back to them.
Sure. Great. So tell me something, Ishi. We have thyroid is a very common problem between the young and the old. What would you say on that? I mean, is there a kind of diet which can help in the problem of thyroid?
If I would simply say one thing, the cure is in the cause. If we understand why we are seeing so many people with thyroid disorders today as against maybe 20-30 years ago, and why so many younger people are coming up, in fact, we are seeing much more of congenital thyroid. If we understand where it's coming from, we'll probably be able to answer that question.
Okay. So okay. Now I want to. Sorry.
Yes.
Can you hear me? I can see the screen getting frozen again. Can you hear me?
I lost but I can hear you.
Yeah, my God, today technology is playing quite a bit of havoc, but I guess it's okay. We just have to go on with it, and I'm sure we'll tide over it. Now, I want to quickly know about your venture of Whole Foods India. I mean, when I saw Whole Foods in the market, I didn't know you were behind the whole show, and I used to be euphoric about the idea of going into Whole Foods, whether it was at a hospital or at a standalone store, and be able to pick up so much for myself and be able to eat guilt free. You know what I'm saying? That Whole Foods, got this whole transformation for us, for having options to have better and healthier eating options. So talk about Whole Foods, please, and how has your journey been with this particular venture in India?
Well, I'm so glad to hear what you said, and it is indeed gratifying. It was a journey which really began on a very small note, in a small pilot in our own office, where we put together a whole range of food alternatives for people, healthier alternatives without trans fats, without hydrogenated fats, bakery with healthy ingredients and with butter. And there were a lot of people who said, "Oh, you have butter in your biscuits?" I said, "Yes, because it's better." "Oh, no. Our cardiac surgeon has said no to butter." So we've been through a lot of all that. And right from nuts and healthy fats, we had excellent, these snack foods, honey coated and jaggery coated snack food. So it has been a journey which has grown, I would say, pretty organically. People, I think it was being there at the right time, at the right place. And that's what has really happened. It has caught the imagination, the fancy of people. One thing I would say is we always ensured, or at least tried to ensure, that whatever people ate was also good on the palate. So it was not, just meant to be only knowledge packed into health, but it was also meant to be exciting your palate and your taste buds. And so that was also the feedback one got. And I don't think they are not mutually exclusive. Taste and health can be married very beautifully if it is done right. And it just kind of grew from, we got our first offer to set up, it was more than an offer. It was like an instruction by Analjit Singh at Max to, get into the Max Hospital and start a cafe. And we said, hey, I am a full-time professional and I don't have the time to run cafes, and this is all that I'm doing. But he sort of did not take no for an answer, and he ensured that we set up the cafe. And from one to it became almost all the leading hospitals in Delhi, everyone wanted it. And we had about 35 cafes, even in multinational offices, etc. So it's been something which is a journey which I would say at a certain level, very, very gratifying and very satisfying to be able to, see so many years. We started it in 2001. The year I left Escorts and started my own private practice. And 2 years ago, we have we wanted to scale it up, and with keeping my busy schedules and the number of things that are going on, was impossible for me to take the next leap forward. So we handed the company to Haldiram, and for the last 2 years, they have taken it over and are running it pretty much the same way as we started it. And I think it hopefully should grow
I'm sure you have your checks and balances on top of it all, because what a phenomenal palette that you were able to create. One didn't really need to feel that one was not eating or feeling, कहते हैं ना कि कुछ किसी चीज से महरूम रह जाना. There was always so much of option to eat. तो ये नहीं लगा कभी भी कि हम कितना कुछ नहीं खा रहे हैं. There were always options. So, which was wonderful. And why I say that is that when my father and my mother were at the Apollo Hospital, I didn't need to think twice. I would just go to the cafe, to Whole Food Cafe, and just eat and not feel guilty, and yet get satiated and feel that, you've eaten everything without depriving yourself of the, good food, which is otherwise not so good, but yet available.
Yes. I'm so glad to hear that. And I have people who say, your burgers we have and nothing happens to us, and we have a burger out. Otherwise, it kind of bothers us and irritates us and causes this and that. So yeah, I think that was the whole idea. And
moving on from there, tell me about your one of its kind, the unique store-based app called the Weight Monitor.
Yes, again, it was driven by the need to upscale my work. I knew it was limited to the number of people who came to see me, and not everybody could be, could afford the kind of, the kind of the financial, the fees, etc. So it was, and I knew people and when they come one-to-one, they need time, they need a lot of, but there is a whole world out there who can benefit if I put my advice together into a, into a way which is easy to, access. And the only way to do it was through technology. And so we devised the app. My family, my boys helped me do that. And the app is available today to everybody in the world. Anyone can access it anywhere at any time. And the uniqueness of the app is simply the fact that it gives you a self-motivating experience. That means, when you're doing a weight loss journey, or when you're transforming yourself in your dietary journey, you need pushes and you need feedback, and so it gives you a score based on what you've eaten, and it tells you why you haven't scored 100 if you've scored a 40 or a 50. So it is doing two things. It is motivating you as well as teaching you. And so that's the uniqueness. And the algorithm that we've developed is based on my 20 years of practice. And so I think it's a very different app. And again, we do help you calculate your calories and your nutritional profile, but we don't emphasize or focus on that. We focus on food groups and what you actually eat. So that is it's not a calorie tracker, it's not a nutrient calculator.
Wonderful, because when I was doing my research, I found that it is already being accessed in about 180 countries.
That's right. That's right.
Wonderful. So, Ishi, when I was off air for in between, were you able to give people an understanding of the immunity boosters that we would want to know about during COVID-19? Have you spoken about it? Because I was off air. Have you been able to take up that question?
I think so. I think we pretty much covered it. There's something specific which needs to be answered. I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, because these are the moments, these bizarre times when it's all about a lot of immunity and boost to our immunity levels. So I was just wanting to understand whether you really were able to touch upon it or not. Is there something that comes to your mind that you may not have touched upon?
I just feel that we don't have to. I just feel that immunity is not just like a one-day affair. It is something which you need to build up on every day. It's like your car. It can, one fine day if you service it and expect it to do a lifetime's job, it won't. It needs to be done on a daily basis. And you don't have to wait for a COVID to look at what you're eating. And eating the right is probably one of the few things which is in your control with respect to COVID. Yes. You can do the either hygiene practices, etc. But who gets the infection and who doesn't in a family depends upon the immune system. And the immunity really lies primarily in your food. And if you, it's your body, if you treat it well and treat it with respect, it will service you well. And if you eat it responsibly, it will not. So you've got to understand, and it's a very important point which I probably missed talking about, is that people come and ask me that, okay, it's COVID time, so I don't think it's the right time to diet or lose weight. And this is really getting far away from the truth. The fact is that obesity is so strongly linked with the infection that even in the UK, Boris Johnson has taken up a whole initiative onto cutting back on junk food in children, because he felt that it was his obesity which was led to his complications. Yeah. So obesity, in fact, they say that the risk, the mortality, the risk for dying is 33% higher in people who are overweight or obese. And so it's not only the risk of dying. They've done a study in an ICU in UK, and they found that the people who were affected by it, there were 73% of them were obese or overweight, which means they had a BMI of more than 30. So this is strongly linked to obesity, strongly linked to inflammation and lowered immunity. So all of you who are listening, please cut down on flab and and your flab from your waist, from your belly, which is more inflammatory than any other part of the body. And it is the time to address it. And so it's not only about, I spoke about wheat and dairy, it's also about sugars and sweets. It's paradoxical that I think at a certain level, we are all stressed. We are all anxious, no matter how much meditation and positive thinking we do. At a certain level, we are carrying this burden of who's going to get it and can we save ourselves, etc., etc. So I think it's important to understand that your intake of wrong foods can be counterproductive, and we are seeking those wrongs. We are getting attracted to sugar. We are getting attracted because these are comfort foods. I was talking about the cannabinoid receptors. So our body is taking us to those comfort foods and starches, which makes you feel good. So it's a paradox here, and it's time to just look at what you're eating. Go back to the 3 Ps, like I said, and plan your diet and cut down on the carbohydrates. Plan your diets more around proteins and protective foods, so that your palate changes. And one more thing I must add is raw vegetables. I know the season is not very conducive right now, but try and include some fruits or vegetables which are uncooked, so that you get the advantage of enzymes, which again change your palate and your eating behavior. Dipali, I will just go on and on. You have to look at the watch.
I know, and I have never done a session which has gone so long, but ईशी बातें करते करते इतनी इंफॉर्मेशन गार्नर करते करते it's been so interesting कि टाइम का पता ही नहीं चल रहा है. So I'm going to quickly wrap up also. I just want 1 or 2 questions in single answers. Is there a connection between blood type and food that you eat?
Nothing that we can scientifically vouch for.
Okay. And anything that you would like to talk quickly in one line about the intake of salt?
Sodium. Well, sodium is something which we do because of processed food. Eat too much.
Yes, when there is so much of salt in processed foods, etc. Yes. Whether it's pickles or it's hams and sausages, etc. So, what do you have to say?
There obviously limit those. Those can be if you can avoid them totally, excellent. But if you can't avoid them totally, have them rarely or infrequently and in smaller portions. That's my common sense advice to you. However, there's a very nice tool which you can all follow that allows you to balance out your excesses. So every alternate day, maybe 3 days of a week, if you just have a diet which is made up of vegetables and fruits, it could be fruits in the morning, it could be soups and salads and vegetables at lunch, and soups and dinner and steamed vegetables. Every alternate day, if you can live something, do it like a practice, like a habit, a lot of these excesses can get neutralized. And
sure.
This is what also we call alternate day fasting. And I think even our religious fasts pretty much work around this, or somehow you can just have a fruit day or a fruit diet on and off, which can help you. But again, it needs to be customized.
Okay, so Ishi, just quickly, 3 key takeaways that you follow in your life as your mantras.
Okay. This is an acronym which has come to my head, and it's called BLESS. BLESS stands for eat better quality, eat less, eat early, and eat slowly. Chew your food.
Yes.
Chew your food.
Yeah. I was going to, I've eliminated so many questions, but I'm not being able to refrain from asking that do children at home and do family members, do they follow your diet plans or your diktats? Do they follow them?
They pretty much do, I have to say. And then there are a lot of jokes on the dining table very often on the food. And so as a family, since we have autoimmunity and thyroid, etc. in the family, we have become a gluten-free family. And some of them have dairy, some of them don't have dairy. But that's pretty much the order of the family. So makes it simpler.
Yes. And Gagan, your husband, having covered India from Ladakh to Kanyakumari on his cycle. That was a phenomenal thing that he did. So I'm sure you had a very meticulously planned diet for him. And is that something that you did? And was he able to really follow it through and through?
Through and through. Absolutely. One of the reasons why he was able to do it trouble-free, he did not even have a day of a stomach or a throat issue or nothing like that. And he was actually so fresh, and people would wonder that it doesn't seem like he cycled 150 kilometers because he was fresh. And I have to share with you my mother's comment when he finished, she said, obviously gluten-free works. So I said, well, he didn't have to cycle all the way to prove that. But yes, a lot of sports people today are following this kind of a diet for better stamina, better energy, and higher performance. And yes, he was very, very careful about, he had dal, chawal, aloo, and eggs and beetroots, and that was it, and his teas and his whatever. Hydration was very important. Plus, we gave him, a calculated amount of fluids through the journey, and so it was quite meticulously planned.
People
and it was
really
60th
Sorry?
It was on his 60th birthday that he did that.
Phenomenal, what a effort and what an endeavor. Unbelievable. I mean, and he did it so beautifully. It was lovely. Okay, Jay Mishra wants to know, what is Ishi's advice on cheat days in a diet plan? Very briefly, Ishi.
Yes, whatever you cheat, I think we talked about the balancing act. So make sure you do that. But having said that, if you have a food sensitivity, if you're a celiac or you're a non-celiac, then don't cheat on the grains which are your offenders. That's not okay.
So Ishi, I have to, I must wrap up. It's almost going to be just a little less than 2 hours. It's been phenomenal. Really
yes.
talk to you, and it's so much information. I'm sure everybody on the chat has had a wonderful time listening to and garnering so much of information. And when this, when my session also goes on air, it's going to be hugely useful to people. And whoever has not been able to receive their answers, I would say that one needs to now just follow Ishi. Visit her website, visit her handles, social media handles, read her books, ask her questions, read her columns, etc., and get to know and get their answers in place. Ishi, is there a particular platform that you want to let them know that they can reach out to you for their understanding and greater understanding and more questions that they may have?
I think you said it all, Dipali. The books would be the best to look at. Eating at Work, The Diet Doctor, and Is Wheat Killing You? Actually, they were in the reverse order. It was Is Wheat Killing You by Penguin, then The Diet Doctor by Penguin, and Eating at Work by Simon Schuster. So they're all available on Kindle and pretty very reasonably priced, and they are pretty easy to understand. And of course, if you want customized advice, you always have the app. And just for anybody who tries to download the app in the next 1 or 2 days, we are changing our server, so you may have some trouble downloading it. So wait for about 2-3 days before you do that. And of course, everything is on the website, so I'm always there. You can reach out to me. And thank you very much, Dipali. It was really nice. I have to admit that it is one of the most fun interviews that I've had. Thanks to you, and minus all the tech stuff which went on.
Beyond our control. So you just endure with it. When it's not in your control, you just endure it, like we are enduring the COVID-19. It's beyond our control. So thank you so much, Ishi, for taking out so much time. And thanks a lot. And as my parting shot to the people, I would also just wrap up by saying that we just have to eat sensibly, and we should just eat to live and not live to eat, really. I mean, and just show some self-respect to ourselves, in terms of making our choices for food. So thank you once again. And I just want to quickly tell the viewers that if you have missed out on my Sharp Conversations sessions earlier, or you have probably not been able to see this fully, please reach out to my YouTube channel, like it, subscribe it, share it, and reach out to me on my Facebook and my Instagram as well. So thank you so much. And I'm not too sure whether Ishi has again gone off one more time, but Ishi, are you there? So I think she suddenly got frozen well on time. So I'm going to say bye to all the viewers. I want to thank each one of you, whether it is Sarita Narula, Sanjay, Surya, Preeta, Tripti, Rashmi, Radhika, Tushar, Jay Mishra, Fahim Khan, the whole lot of them. So thank you so very much for having joined us and listening to this very informative session. Thank you and bye-bye, and I will see you soon. Bye.